Hello, moms. This is Moms Winning at Work. Okay, this is a rebranded podcast, not really a podcast, but just like a video cast where Tangela Reed and myself, Cynthia Alfaro, two HR experts, come together to drop some of our gems onto you for free. Okay, we know what it feels like to be a working mom. It's hard. Okay. If nobody's acknowledged that or given you that space, it's hard. And so we just are seeing the gap and using our gifts to try to do something good, leave the world better than we found it. Tangela, as always, you're beautiful. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for making the time. You always give us such good knowledge. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I was just yelling at my kids in the background, but all good.
But we're ready. We're ready.
Exactly.
Moms.
Exactly.
So remember to support us on social media really quick. If you haven't been following Moms Winning, do that, please, on Facebook, join the group, like the page, follow me on Instagram, as well as Tangela's company. Go ahead and tell us where to find you.
Yep, you can follow me on Talent Ready LLC on Instagram and on Facebook.
Yay, Talent Ready. And talk to us a little bit, like in 60 seconds or less. What is Talent Ready?
Talent Ready is an HR consulting and career development group. So we help all individuals, primarily focused on individuals of underrepresented backgrounds, with managing their career, coaching, and also leadership development.
Lovely. All right. Okay. So our topic today for March is managing your weekly check-ins and also self-care. Moms, if you remember, earlier this year, or maybe in December, we put out a survey, like, what are the topics that you would like us to chit chat about? Because we try to do these bite-sized, high-value sessions, 20 minutes or less, to provide you the things that you need, that we know that it's happening in the world. And so we have our stuff, but we want to hear from you. So that's why we're blending in self-care into managing your weekly check-in, which we might always like just bypass the weekly check-in. We might be like dragging ourselves to the weekly check-in and not seeing it as like a real strategic move to be prepared and all that good stuff. So Tangela, how should we be managing our weekly check-ins to like live our best life at work?
Yeah. So I think weekly check-ins are super important. I think a lot of times managers may skip it. You as an employee, you may skip it, but it's really valuable for a lot of things. And I think I'm going to break it into three sections. So some people may be focused on their career, right? Like they're trying to accelerate their career. So your weekly check-in is a big opportunity to kind of highlight all of the things that you've done. Others may be trying to get on a good track. So sometimes, we're all not perfect. We may not be doing the greatest in our roles. So getting back on track, your weekly check-ins is a good opportunity to check in with your manager on how things are going and what you need to do to get to a better standing. And then it just may be a regular check-in, right? Like as a team, communication is really important. So just staying on the same page, depending on the type of work you do, things happen very rapidly. So another reason your check-ins are so important is just to keep everyone on the same page.
I like it. So I am, a side note, I'm rewatching all of the Ted Lasso shows because the third season is coming out. And I really love this show a lot for a lot of different reasons. But one, because there is a great leadership story in there. I don't know if you've ever watched it, but basically this guy is like super positive and really leads a team to greatness. And so I'm always intrigued by those stories. But to your point, if you imagine a team locker room, they're always reviewing the games, even if they're easy to watch or hard to watch. They're reviewing the tracks, right? They're reviewing the games to say what happened this week. And that's what the weekly check-in should be. And I wish I could say every manager cares about this, you all, but we know that they don't, right? So it's up to us to manage that. Like I said, I wish I could say every manager is like, oh my gosh, I was thinking about this, that, and I saw your presentation and I already had some tips for you. No, I wish it should be happening like that, but it doesn't. So it's up to us to really walk into those moments and try to manage it for ourselves. Can you talk to us a little bit on how we should be preparing for those?
Yeah, so let me go into the different types that I talked about. So if you're looking to accelerate your career and you want to be acknowledged for what you're doing, I think it's important that we understand that one, we have to kind of boast about ourselves. So your weekly check-in is a good time to talk about the projects that you've completed, to get on the same track with your manager about the projects you've done, to boast about any accolades you've received, maybe emails you've gotten, to just acknowledge the great work that you're doing. So this is a good way to let your manager know the list of things that you've had going on, so that he or she or they, one, they're knowledgeable of it, but also so that they can pass on the word. I think a lot of times people just think that, putting their head down, doing a great job will get them to the next level, but it is our responsibility to talk about ourselves and really just be our own walking billboard so that we can accelerate our careers even faster. So that's one. The other thing is, and if you're in this same space of trying to accelerate your career, your weekly check-in is a good time to put your ideas on the table. So again, business is happening very quickly. You might have an idea that you think you can execute on it. Maybe you've had a chance to start to do it between the week, but maybe you need some guidance or maybe a bit of permission around what to do next. So talking about your ideas with your manager is another good thing to do, especially when you're in the space of accelerating your career. Now, if you're in the place of getting on a better track, so number one, I want to say that I feel like when people are not doing well at work, it is very stressful, right? It weighs on us. It feels very heavy. And I think a lot of times, at least people that I've worked with and coach managers through like performance improvement plans, employees tend to go through this like paranoia phase. And your weekly check-ins, if you are on like a performance improvement plan, or you're in a place where you know that things are not going well, try to just stay focused. If it's a role that you're interested in, if it's a role that you want to keep, think about the feedback that you've gotten, prepare yourself for the actions that people have laid out for you, likely your manager or others in your group, and then follow the plan. If you have committed to doing something, make sure you're following through. And again, advocate for yourself. So talk about the things that you've completed, talk about how you're getting on the right track. Try your best to kind of suppress your emotions around it, and just use this opportunity to show and prove that you are in the right space. And then the last category that I mentioned at the beginning is just staying on the same page. So if you've ever heard of things like agile work groups that do things, typically agile is associated with like technology updates and things like that. There are groups that have daily stand-up meetings or daily check-ins, so that things don't move so slowly or so quickly that people start to get off of track and out of sync with one another. So staying on the same page is another reason why weekly check-ins are so important. I really think people don't spend a lot of time planning and strategizing and thinking about what they've committed to. So a lot of times we create these goals at the beginning of the year, then we kind of just let the day-to-day kind of take us wherever it does. And your weekly check-ins really help you to stay on track between you, other team members, and your manager.
Love all of that. Thank you so much. Very profound stuff there. I want to say, to your point about boasting yourself, women, we have to understand that it is okay if that's uncomfortable for you. I don't think we're really socialized to do that, right? We could talk about, that could be another topic about socialization of the genders, but just acknowledging that, oh, it feels uncomfortable. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. That doesn't mean you shouldn't work that muscle. We're asking you to start to work that muscle. And it's very important, because I would say my check-ins were definitely just totally work-based, like just asking questions. Is this right? What do you want me to do? It was like just a receiver mode versus a giver mode. And that's the shift that we encourage everyone to make, is like, don't just take the orders, right? But also say, hey, by the way, want to just recap in case you didn't hear it. I did this presentation, got these 3 comments, really proud about that. It needs to be a part of your weekly check-in. So really seeing this check-in as not just tactical or like surface level stuff, but it is a moment, it is a marketing moment for you to help your manager who has tons of stuff going on, and is probably um, working hard to try to find the time to even coach the folks, right? So, and that's real. And so the weekly check-in is maybe the only time of individual attention that they can give you, or individual attention that they can give you. So we want to maximize that. I always love stuff in writing too. So even after a conversation and words are spoken and energy is felt, I usually document on like a living document where all the check-ins, and depending on what your systems are, there are great systems out there that actually just allow you to document what was written. That is a great practice too, so that you can remember, somebody else can remember, and you should have like your wins somewhere in that check-in to just help you push there. So I just wanted to mention that's super, it's a paradigm shift for us at times to boast ourselves.
Nope, I totally agree with that. And I think it is uncomfortable, but some of the things that you mentioned should definitely happen between the check-ins, right? So documenting, like your manager's busy, but so are you. And sometimes you forget like what you've done. And when you write it down, like you mentioned, it becomes even more clear, like how much you are actually contributing. And I think the other thing we do, I don't know if you guys do this, but I feel like I've done this and continue to do it, is you may be contributing so much, but you don't even give yourself credit for it. You kind of just say, oh yeah, but that's a part of my job. And really, if you think about it, and if you compare, and if you get some feedback from others, you'll see how much you are actually probably going above and beyond the call of duty. And again, sometimes writing it down, seeing it on paper helps. And it definitely helps to solidify a conversation afterward.
Love it. Okay. Should we navigate into self-care, or is there anything else that you want to mention about weekly check-ins?
No, I just want to do a quick recap. So again, you can use your weekly check-ins for tactical check-ins, like you mentioned, and I think that's for people who are just trying to stay on the same page, understanding what's happening. But it's also a great time to accelerate your career. So make sure you are writing down your contributions. Make sure you're pulling up your ideas to your manager so that they can be considered. Keep track of your ideas and the things that you're contributing to the team. Highlight the projects that you've worked on, the projects that you've led. And then the other thing is write down your goals, because we talk about the annual goals, but then things do shift over time, like whether it's within the year, within 6 months, potentially within a week. So write down your goals. And I think this, at least for me, it feeds into self-care. And I'm not sure exactly what you're going to talk about, Cindy, but when I'm prepared for the week, when I've reflected on my week, all of those things really help to kind of relax the anxiety that sometimes creeps into like my space or into my energy. So I think it will also help, like as you get more comfortable talking about yourself, when you've written it down and you're prepared, it flows a bit better because you're not just going off the top of your head. So yeah, happy to shift into self-care, but I think if you follow those tips, it will help.
1000%, like a trillion% as far as it being a self-care tool. And what I have found in my new consulting entrepreneurial stage is that sometimes we just have to insert the simple stuff first. So like using the template for your check-in takes your thinking out of it. Like just decide, what are the 3 things I need to do every week with my manager? The template's already there. You figured it out. Now just make the time. Maybe it's the day before or whatever. So build in the time to have these habits work for you to achieve what you want. So a template takes the thinking out of it. The time takes the, rushing out of it. So now you're prepared for this, and you're allowed to achieve some of the things that we have already said. The other thing I wanted to mention is people aren't even having weekly check-ins. So I'm working with a client, and they don't even have weekly check-ins. And so that's part of our work to implement like the weekly check-ins, or sometimes sure, bi-weekly is okay too. But again, think about it. If you were a team playing a game every week and you didn't have the locker time or the review the tapes time, too much stuff goes by, right? For you to actually get the feedback that you need to get better for the next week. So you could see how quickly a month can roll by and you're just doing the same stuff that may not even be effective. So every week really does matter. And I encourage folks to sit with their coach, because their manager should be their coach, and sit with them and demand, take up the space that you need to get to your next level of work during that weekly check-in, because they're super powerful. And the other way around too, if you are the manager, it's a great way to streamline people coming to you 60 times a week with stuff, right? Because if you've already sat with them for an hour to answer all of their questions, now you've just decreased the amount of interruptions you'll get. Or if somebody comes to you on a Thursday and you have a meeting with them on a Monday, a check-in, you could say, yep, I see that. Let's talk about it on Monday. Delegate. So that helps you as a manager being able to manage all the data that's coming to you every day, and not feeling like, oh, I have to respond to everything right now. And then you're into like 5 different fires and you can't get your work done. So as a manager, super powerful tool, 1,000% to help you streamline what you need to do to be a great coach for your team, and at the same time, get your other work done. And I would, here's like a super tip. Is I used to do my weekly check-ins. I had them bi-weekly, I believe, but I would do them all on the same day, so that there was like a theme, a vibe, and I was like mentally ready to coach that day. I wasn't trying to like talk to vendors and do workshops, but that was like my day of just kind of just having this time block and energy focused on that. And I didn't try to plan other things. So those are some tips. I will transition into self-care. So there's a lot. So I'll try to get through it quickly. We're working moms. That's a lot. So I'm all about trying to find like those mini injections into the day that could be saving our mental health. So number one, if you can, maybe protect your morning space for you to catch up on emails and stuff like that. So try not to plan. This is something I've implemented. Try not to plan meetings before a certain hour, like 10 o'clock is super helpful. Again, it gives you time to be able to do what you need to do in the morning to feel ready for the day. Sometimes we walk into like a lot of emails, right? Or somebody needs to chat with us right away or whatever. And you want to create enough time for that. Do that at home as well. The Mondays for me were always like the moments that would create like the most tears for everybody. So figuring out how like to plan for the mess that might be the morning, right? So whether it's like doing everything the night before that you can, baking in more time in the morning, understanding that the meltdowns are going to happen, oh, I don't like my hair today is going to happen, like with your kids and whatnot. So just preparing for that can actually calm you and give you the extra space you need in order to deal with that. I found that my biggest frustrations was when I was crunched for time and couldn't allow space for a meltdown or for somebody forgetting their gloves or iPad at home and stuff like that. But if you plan for that extra time, helps out. Same thing back to the workspace. Same thing with lunch. Take your lunches. And if you can, go for a walk around the block 6 times. Do that. Understand that getting fresh air, getting movement is super important. And then I would just say, as it relates to like your home life, if you can have private time at home, especially in the morning, to get some prayers in, some meditation, some stretching, it's been super helpful for me. Go to therapy. Okay. There is so much freedom and liberation, especially every time I have a conversation with a working mom, I'm like, are you seeing a therapist? I want to encourage you today to go see a therapist because we have so much on our shoulders and we need to stop pretending that like, oh, we got it until it's crisis mode. And I've been in crisis mode. So I encourage anybody today to go seek therapy. Great that your mom and that your sister or that your friends all will take your calls and see and hear you vent, but to have like a doctor, somebody also help you name things, that is freedom. If you can name it, you can tame it. Okay. And it's just very liberating. And I encourage you to do it because we're really holding on to too much. Lastly, we know at night, we sometimes aren't getting to bed as early as we should, but having a nice little wind down routine, whether it's journaling, whether it's listening to music and also meditating, Super, super important. I know it like, that's the only time I get by myself without my kids, but just really try to honor yourself and understand that you are preparing yourself to win the next day by having as much sleep as possible. I was just thinking about it today. I was like, oh, I'm glad I don't have little babies anymore because I just wasn't sleeping enough. And that is not mental health. Like that's not wellness, right? But that's part of what gives us that badge of honor of being a parent. Lastly, drink lots of water, eat right, get some greens and some good fruit into your life, and just make it a habit. What are going to be your snacks so that it's always going to be an apple, it's always going to be an orange, whatever it is, prepare that and have good social time for yourself if you're allowed to. If you have the luxury of like going away or doing something just with your girlfriends, go ahead and do it. Having a strong social network is super important to mental health. And that's what we're still all recovering from with COVID, is having been isolated for so long. We're seeing it more so in young people, but it's really still affecting everybody. Anything to add, Tani?
No, you did. I mean, you hit on a lot of things, and I completely agree with the time in the morning. I'm a morning person, and I also don't sleep. So some of these tips that you just gave, I'm like, I got to get better at that. But in the morning, starting this January, I've been meditating and exercising, even if it's just 15 minutes. And that has been life changing because that time in the morning has also been, so it's been a combination of things that we've talked about. It's the goal setting, because that has allowed me to prioritize and pick my yeses and my nos, right? Like if it's not on the goals and it's not a priority, it's easy for me to then say, yeah, no, I can't dedicate my time to that. So that's helping. But that morning time is really good, especially because with kids, you're bound to have a breakdown, especially if you have multiple kids. I have 3 kids at home. There's pickiness with food, there's forgetting homework that I already reminded them about that night before. Like, you know, the frustration is building up in me right now. So it's one of those things, like when you're prepared mentally, if you've had a moment to think about how you want to respond in those circumstances, it really makes a big difference. And then for your kids, the experience for them as well, right? Like I'm not flipping on them, which I tend to do, especially when I'm frustrated, as often. Yeah, no, so totally agree. And then I think we also take for granted how much things like water and veggies really does help us. I was going through a period last year where I felt completely drained. And it was part of it was I wasn't drinking enough water and I wasn't eating right. So yeah, I'm with you on everything that you said.
Yeah, we're not robots, that don't need nourishment and right nourishment. Again, we're coming from a history of being really disconnected with the food that we put in our body, but our food does fully, I firmly believe, what we put in our body mentally and, to food to nourish us completely affects how we feel. So drinking water and having, like, anytime I go through a super stressful season, I'm like, just make sure you're hitting your water. Make sure you're like having some salads and some fruit, like the bare essentials. That's our bare essentials. Like that should be in our toolkit to live this life as mothers. Exercise really quick. Endorphins are the happy hormones that
Right.
help us to feel better from moving our body. It's just like taking a pill. People don't believe that, but it is just like taking a pill. So we encourage you, instead of, um, going straight to pills, but which some people do need for certain seasons of their life, and I'm all for that, absolutely, is to also move, because your actual body is meant to be moving, not sitting all day. But some of us are actually don't have the option to not be sitting all day. So that's why I said, walking during your lunch periods or your 15-minute breaks that are federally mandated that you should be able to take, help. They help you to put those happy hormones in your body. So just consider that like this virtual pill that you're taking to make yourself feel better and feel a little bit more upbeat. And we all need that. Anything else before we sign off? Go
Just
ahead.
one last point is just related to the therapy. Because I feel like if you've never been to therapy, you may not know exactly like what the value is. And it's not, at least in my experience, it's not just like talking and venting, but sitting with the professional is the opportunity to get tools. Like your therapist will give you tools that you can use, whether it's understanding your emotions, changing your behaviors, understanding how other people operate, right? They have literally studied how we as people are, how we behave, our tendencies, and things that can help like mentally shift our minds. So it's just, I mean, it's something that's new to me, but I wasn't expecting how practical it is. So yeah, I'm
Yes.
totally with you on the therapy.
Thank you for that. Cause I know there were definitely some good moments that I immediately called my best friend. I'm like, let me tell you what she said. Oh my gosh, I've been dealing with this for like 40 years, thinking it is me, thinking da, 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 and it shows up here and it shows up there. And she was able to be like, boom, 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 here you go with the bow on it. And I'm like, I can let it go now, right? So it's so liberating. We want all moms to be liberated. So I love us. I love us as moms. Thanks, Tani, for being here again.
My pleasure. My
Moms,
pleasure.
share this episode with somebody you care about. We know we are out here, doing the good work, doing the good fight to create more space for us, especially in the work world. And there's a lot more work to be done. So share this with somebody, help us spread the work, and also the word for Moms Winning and Talent Ready. We appreciate you, and give us comments, give us feedback. What do you want to hear? Send us notes. Anything, we are here for you. We appreciate you. Let's win.
Bye.